Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, November 25th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about a prediction between the Turkey Party nominee and the Democratic-Republican Party nominee for the 2024 presidential election. Now, first things first, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you're having an amazing time with your family, and I hope you're not talking about politics, but I do invite you, and I'm hopeful that you watch the remainder of this video because you can't get too much of it. And looking at our future presidential election in about 3 years from now, voters will decide whether or not they want President Turkey to be reelected as the next president or continue to be the president of the United States, or will they opt for a human Democrat-Republican Party nominee, whoever it might be. There seems to be some ideas about frontrunners, but it looks like that primary is going to ultimately decide, who is the next president of the United States. Now, taking a look at our electoral map, it's a bit different from what we're used to. After last year's election in which Senator Turkey, now President Turkey, was able to win the election against the incumbent Vice President Ham here, you saw that the margin here in my prediction was extremely close. Now, it ended up, of course, with the Turkey Party winning this election by a little bit more than the Ham Party, but ultimately it resulted in the dissolution of the Ham Party. Ultimately, people said you need to have some type of human representation on the ballot, otherwise you pretty much split that vote pretty evenly, and that argument really makes sense. So looking at this projection, we're going to be talking primarily about what we can expect to see in 2024, and if that election was held today, what would happen between the Turkey Party nominee, which we are going to assume is the president of the United States, and then the Democratic-Republican Party nominee. Now, right before I actually made this projection, just a few days ago, we actually saw some type of intervention by members of the Democratic-Republican Party in this election in a major wave endorsement. We saw that the former vice president under President Barack Obama, Vice President Biden, spoke at a rally at the White House for President Turkey with the running mate there. These two together are running for re-election in 2024, and ultimately the one of the biggest names in the Democratic-Republican Party here, the former Vice President of the United States, came to a rally at the White House to speak on their behalf. And it comes as a major endorsement because there haven't been many top political endorsements from the Democratic-Republican Party, and ultimately this is what it resulted in. Now, I will say that the Democrat-Republican Party nominee thing is probably one of the least likely things that we can see out of this video. Most unrealistic thing, I would say, arguably, just that Democrats and Republicans working together in their own political party, but that's besides the point. Ultimately, though, we are going to see an extremely close election, and this one probably will come down to the wire, just as the one in 2020 did altogether. So just for a little bit of orienting, what is the current state of the nation? Well, how does the country view the state of the nation? Well, right now it looks like the majority of the nation believes we are on the wrong track, with just 30% of the nation saying we are moving in the right direction. And that sort of makes sense. Following President Turkey's electoral victory back on November 2020, people began to distrust our electoral process. How could we elect someone that was deemed so irresponsible by members of both sides of the media? But ultimately, President Turkey seems to be doing pretty well in terms of the polling data. Immediately following into office, President Turkey did not take a lead over the Democrat-Republican potential nominee. They actually took a very strong one, primarily because earlier on in the year, people had a lot of distrust to have a Turkey as president of the United States. But ultimately, they elected them in the first place. And now we start to see a large lead for the Turkey Party over the Democrat-Republican Party. So let's go ahead and get into this projection and see what actually we can expect from either political side. So we have our safe states, as we typically do, and I will say that our safe states for the Democrat-Republican Party is the states with the highest amount of turkey hunting. The best states for turkey hunting, according to on xmaps.com, and they have the top 8 states with the best laws to hunt turkeys. Now, I cannot even begin to fathom how insane it is that there is this idea that, people are out here hunting political opponents. That is something that is absolutely ludicrous, something that should never even be discussed in electoral politics. But unfortunately, that is the reality that we live in here in America. So looking at our map here, all 8 of these states, Montana, Nebraska, Kansas, Wisconsin, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, New Hampshire, and Maine. Actually, that is more than 8 states. But ultimately, these are the states that are going to be very solid for the Democrats and the Republicans for very obvious reasons. So we can characterize all of those right now. These are the states that are pretty much going to be without contention by the turkey parties. They know that they are a hunted species in this region, so they certainly aren't going to be holding any campaign events, any campaign rallies, and most of the turkeys at this point in time have either been hunted or have moved out entirely from the state. So that gives the Turkey Party that gives the Democrat-Republican Party 77 electoral votes, but that leaves up 461 that are still in contention. Now, I will say the Turkey Party also has their own safe states. We can actually take a look here. According to the National Turkey Foundation, which I had no idea was a thing, but apparently is a thing, they used USDA data to find the number of turkeys raised in the highest turkey-producing states in the country. And coincidentally, or maybe not so coincidentally, all 8 of these states, none of them coincide with the states with the highest amount of turkey hunting or the best states for turkey hunting. I think it tells you a lot about what actually happens here. But looking at the 8 states, let's go ahead and characterize them. So you have the state of California. This is a huge victory for the Turkey Party. They were really vying for this race right from the beginning, primarily because it started out as a toss-up. But ultimately, as people started to realize that they would lose jobs if turkeys were to be removed from power, if they were to lose accessibility to certain types of amenities because of turkeys being removed out of power, ultimately California veered very hard towards the Turkey Party. And then you have part of Abe Lincoln, this part here that looks like Abraham Lincoln. You have Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas. That consists of the 5 states out of the 8. And then you have Indiana, Virginia, and North Carolina. So we begin to see where our party divides are, and we're probably going to see nearly a cut halfway through the United States between one side supporting a different political party. And it becomes very clear and very apparent by the end of this video, and you probably already know based off of your understanding of the coalitions between both political parties here. But taking a look at it, it's very clear that the Turkey Party is going to win these states, and we have our standard safe states, as we always do. It's not crazy to assume that the Turkey Party would be able to win 126 electoral votes when they nearly routinely have held large amounts of support in those states. But it is a bit different than what we expected just a year ago. We had a little bit different of expectations for some of these states. Virginia, North Carolina, Indiana stayed the same. Missouri, Arkansas, Minnesota stayed the same. California stayed the same. The only major difference here was the state of Iowa, which actually did vote for Vice President Ham, but a lot of consolidation from that dissolved Ham party moving into the Turkey Party for this election season. So let's move into the likely states. Now, we can actually see some of these likely states with the Turkey Party primarily based off the ones that also have high exports. Now, let's talk Turkey, which is something that is quite fascinating that it just so happens to be coincidental with the video here, but they have the states with the most turkey jobs. Again, people realize that when turkeys are removed out of power, they begin to lose accessibility, amenities, and certain jobs. And you can see this in this map. Now, taking a look at it, based off of my understanding of the states with the most turkey jobs, I actually want to go ahead and apply that to our new map here so we can actually see which states are considered to be likely. And we'll talk about some regional differences too that would ultimately benefit the Turkey Party altogether. So with Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Illinois all being states that are grouped in here that are part of a very similar region and also have a very similar culture in terms of turkey politics. With the high amounts of turkey producing jobs here, people are going to associate turkeys with jobs the same way people might have used to associate the Ham Party with jobs. Now it is the Turkey Party with jobs, and that's the way that our American political discourse has really changed the way we look at this new electoral map. And then moving over to the West Coast, we know that the West Coast typically votes in unison. Even if they don't necessarily agree with a lot of the sentiment about the Turkey Party, they will likely follow suit with whatever California decides to do, and Hawaii can also be grouped in there as well. So where does that put us? That puts the Turkey Party nominee at 220 electoral votes and the Democrat-Republican nominee at just 77. But of course, they have their own likely states as well. And you can begin to see this when it comes down to the states with decreasing amounts of turkey jobs. People might not prioritize this and consequently won't believe this to be a top issue for them when they actually vote in the election. And one thing that I also will say is that with this northeastern advantage with the states with decreased amounts of turkey jobs, the Democratic Republican Party is making its first showing since 1834. They dissolved back then and have re-established themselves to counteract what they view as the tyranny of the Turkey Party, with animals making decisions for humans and the rest of the nation, and that's their main platform. There has been a bit of controversy over this symbol here. This is something that was displayed as possibly an ignorant move by the Democratic Republican Party here, as something that would be draped over a Thanksgiving table, and was much of a scandal, sort of indicating that the Democratic Republican Party views turkeys only as food rather than political entities and people to work with and have a bipartisan solution in the United States Senate and the House of Representatives. So this in itself ultimately pushed many people away that were turkey enthusiasts even from considering voting for the Democratic Republican Party. But with this old way of thinking and previous regional advantage, when the Democratic Republican Party was dissolved, most of the states on the Union were not actually states, and they had a huge advantage in that northeastern region. And consequently, that huge advantage rolls over into today. Never underestimate the amount of, old support here. Even if it is centuries old, you will ultimately find it. West Virginia sort of pours over because they broke away from Virginia for a reason, so it really wouldn't make sense for them to vote together. So that puts us at a map of 161 electoral votes for the Democrat Republicans, but they actually have a bit more likely states that we need to characterize. And I can show you that in just a moment. You have the District of Columbia, which votes primarily with the state of Maryland, sometimes with Virginia. But moving over into the middle part of America, you have North and South Dakota, which are huge enthusiasts for hunting states. These are states where you really start to see a lot of pro-Second Amendment people, a lot of people that are willing to, work with hunters across the United States. And you can actually start to see this with the hunter density for many of these parts. And you also see this in the northeastern region, thus explaining further why there is that strong amount of support for the Democrat-Republican Party here. And Idaho, another state that I would say definitely sympathizes with that type of that way of thinking, and also Oklahoma. I would also group into that altogether. So now we're at a map with 181 electoral votes for the Democrat Republicans and then 220 for the Turkey Party nominee. Now, this is where the election gets extremely close. We might not see a headline further than even more than 4 days out if we are to hold the election today. I would say it definitely comes down to the wire where people are going to be shocked about what actually happens in this race. I can tell you now that in 3 years from now, the Turkey Party will probably still do very well, but it won't be known until later down the line. And with me telling you that, let's go ahead and characterize some of these states that are in the lean column for the Turkey Party, then back over into the Democrat-Republican Party, and then we'll finalize the map over the Sunbelt region across Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Texas. Those are some pretty big states. So looking at the southern region here, I would say that, Mississippi, Louisiana are probably going to vote together to benefit the Democrat Republicans. And also there just seems to be a strong amount of historical support for Democrats here, and also more recently, Republican support before the dissolution of both political parties back in the 2016 election. Moving over to the South Carolina region, you would also expect to see a lean victory for the Democrats, Republicans. Now, these are areas in which the Turkey Party certainly could try to win, but they are not the favorites as it stands today. Even with an advantage so large on the national average, it still is going to take a bit in order for you to get to that point, especially if the country believes we're moving in the wrong direction, but still trusts you to lead the nation. That is also something that holds a lot of weight and will truly determine the trajectory of this race at this point in time. But moving down to the state of Florida, I would say that the Turkey Party definitely has a narrow advantage there. Now, this is a very tricky state to gauge. It's really hard to understand how Florida is, just in general, not just in politics, but altogether. Florida definitely is one of the more unknown states when it comes down to why are things happening. Whenever you see a Florida man headline, you begin to question, is Florida even really a state? Things like that definitely come into consideration. But Florida, for right now, I would say, is one of the few states that could be considered to be lean for the Turkey Party, which may be beneficial for them, telling them that they have very solid groups of support, and that means they can move into 2024, expanding their margins here, but we will see what happens here. The Democrats and the Republicans hold a lot of support out in Alaska. Not many people there care about the Turkey Party altogether. A lot of support for the Second Amendment out there. Wyoming can be considered as such as well. The Democrats, Republicans definitely are a bit more conservative than the Turkey Party for obvious reasons. When you're talking about support from PETA and animal rights groups, those are typically associated with members of the left wing, and Turkey Party likely would be considered as such. I mean, they have received the endorsement from PETA for Obvious reasons. But moving into the state of Texas, this is one that I do think that the Democrat Republicans will again be able to consolidate that historical Democratic support and newfound before dissolvement Republican support and ultimately overcome the Turkey Party in the state of Texas. So in these final states, the toss-up states, 38 electoral votes, will there be a Turkey president? Will there be a human president? Well, it definitely comes down to the wire. We are at 250 to 250, and ultimately, at this point in time, it's anyone's game. So, and no pun intended of that, and no trying to, on my behalf, to insult the Turkey Party in that comment. But it truly is anyone's game at this point in time. With Utah going to the Democrat-Republican Party, I would also say that Nevada goes to the Turkey Party nominee. In fact, I would say that that one is a bit closer to tilt, and maybe we could characterize Utah as such as well. And in these final three states, you have Colorado and New Mexico and Arizona. And we're going to go ahead and characterize those one by one. Colorado, I would say, is tilt for the Democrats, Republicans, and Arizona is tilt for the Turkey Party. And the final state that decides it all is the state of New Mexico. And when taking a look at, the states with a lot of residual support for the Turkey Party, it does come down to the wire. But ultimately, I do think that the Turkey Party would be able to narrowly win re-election. President Turkey and Vice President Turkey would be elected for 4 more years through the state of New Mexico. In one of the most hotly contested elections I have personally ever covered, the final result here is 272 to 266. A bunch of flips on both sides of the aisle, primarily because of the dissolvement of the Ham Party following the 2020 election. That election certainly was pretty close, and New Mexico ultimately did come down to the wire again back in historical elections. But now we take a look in moving into the future elections. As it stands today, I do think that President Turkey would be reelected, especially following this endorsement from the former Vice President of the United States, who just held a rally for the two at the White House, Vice President Biden, showing crossover support from the Democrats and Republicans into the Turkey Party, which consequently would result in their reelection across the United States. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys are having a very great time. Again, don't talk too much about politics. Obviously, I'm happy that you're here, but then again, politics should not be discussed at the Thanksgiving dinner table just for everybody's sake. I want to say that I hope you have an amazing time, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow.